Welcome to the STR Data Lab.
Hello and welcome to the STR Data Lab. I'm Jamie Lane, Chief Economist at AirDNA, and I'm joined today by two guests. They are joining us remote, and you'll get a sense on why I mentioned that in a second. But we've got Kylee and Steven Niederhauser. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. We're
Thank you
excited
so
to be on.
much.
Yeah. So you guys run a boutique vacation rental brand in Southern California. And you guys have thousands of followers on Instagram, sort of following your journey. And you guys have been operating now in the vacation rental, short-term rental space for since 2017?
Yep.
So you've been doing it a long time. You're part of the pre-COVID crew. So maybe just start with how did you guys get into short-term rentals and where this journey, where is it taking you guys?
Yeah.
It's been an interesting story. We started in 2017. We were living in Munich, Germany. And prior to Munich, we'd been in San Diego. So we kind of considered San Diego home, had a work opportunity in Germany, decided to take that. So we were in Germany for 4 years. And then the opportunity to move back to San Diego came about. And we decided we would do that. And at that time, Kylee was pregnant with our son. And we were just kind of brainstorming, where do we want to live in San Diego? What do we want to do? One of our friends had started a short-term rental business, just kind of inadvertently. He bought a duplex and he was living in half and then renting the other half on Airbnb. And we thought, San Diego is a busy vacation market. Why don't we explore that a bit? And so we started, and it's a long story, but eventually
there's a lot that happened between point A and point B there, but we ended up buying a pretty rundown place in Mission Beach. We wanted to be very close to the beach. Run down to the point where my mom said, I don't really want my grandson living in this house. We did it anyways. We always we get a feeling and we kind of hype each other up and we just go for it. And that's kind of been our journey this whole time. But we ended up fixing up one of the units, living in the unrenovated unit for about 2 years. And fixed it up, put it on Airbnb, and it just took off. And, we felt really fortunate because it was covering the mortgage for the whole duplex. So we were basically living rent-free right next to the beach. And that kind of lit the fire in us. And kind of side by side to that, our neighbors in Mission Beach is a very big STR community. They started noticing that our place was booked all the time, and they said, hey, would you come and fix ours up a little bit, make it look a little nicer like yours and manage it for us? And we thought, sure, why not? We
were doing the hosting anyway, and it was easy because Kylee had the opportunity to not go back to a career job, while our son was really young. She could handle the operations right there. And then the literal next door neighbors, property management just seemed like a pretty easy add-on to what we were already doing. So we did that. And then we had, I think at that time, pretty quickly, 5 listings right there in Mission Beach. And then family friends that, were interested in real estate investing, they kind of said, oh, I see you've got a successful little short-term rental business there. We want to invest in real estate. And Kylee grew up in the Palm Springs area. And
you mentioned the COVID boom.
Yeah. And so that was like
all during this time,
2019, people, interested in investing in the Palm Springs area. So then things kind of started growing there. And then COVID happened and even more people wanted to buy second homes in the Palm Springs area. So that's when things really exploded, and the numbers of properties we were managing really grew. I think, in late 2020, early 2021, we were doing setup after setup, and
we never really started out to be property managers. It just kind of fell into our laps and then just started rolling. And by the time it kind of slowed down and we could take a breath, we had 40 properties under our belt and not a whole lot of systems, to be honest, at the time. And we kind of had to work our way backwards once we slowed down a little bit.
Yeah. It was a crazy.
So I'm assuming you guys and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys weren't already in hospitality when you got started. And what were what are your careers? What were your day jobs before and sort of launching into this?
Sure. I worked in commercial real estate and commercial property management for a little while, just kind of fresh out of college. But then we moved to Germany shortly after that. Steven had a long career in mechanical engineering. He can speak on that more than I can.
Yeah. No, I did engineering for a long time, electronics design, and project management eventually. And Kylee, when we were in Germany, it wasn't really feasible for her to get some real career job. She worked at a kindergarten, which was cool, an English speaking kindergarten. And yeah, then when we moved back, I had the engineering job still until 2020, late 2021. And then we had kind of just decided I'd had enough of, juggling the constraints between what was happening with the career job and what was happening with property management and our own real estate acquisition projects, that I got rid of that engineering job. And since then, we've just been doing this full time.
Yeah. So, and before we get into current day, like what was that sort of thought process like for moving from a full-time W-2 job to like, all right, my real estate property management business is grown enough where like, I'm going to take the leap?
It was, I think really what it came down to was our free time. I was working and Monday through Friday, and then we had all these onboardings happening, and that was in San Diego. We had all these onboardings happening primarily in the Palm Springs area. So Friday afternoon, we'd pack up the car and we'd drive to Palm Springs and work all weekend, and then drive back sometimes early Monday morning straight to my office because we'd leave a car there, and then I'd be back, doing the Monday through Friday thing. And at the same time, as onboarding new properties, there's all the operations of existing properties, and it was just really an unsustainable grind.
Yeah.
And we never had any free time to do anything. And we knew we couldn't keep doing that. So yeah, it was just kind of a necessary transition where obviously you take a pay cut when you give away that W-2 job, but we looked at it as a way to use the time we had to continue to build the business and kind of get a little bit of our sanity back too,
So now it feels like you guys have moved and almost the exacts are like even further along the like realm of like and away from W-2 job working Monday through Friday. And now for the listeners, like what have you guys taken on now in terms of your property management business?
Yeah. So between 2020 and now, we saw this big boom and this big growth in our business. And then we got to the point where we had to outsource again. We're like, this is too big. This is too much. We can't do it all. We had 2 kids then at that point, and we homeschool. So they were home with us all the time too. And so we ended up starting with just a part-time hire. And that grew into now a full-time role. So now we have in our different markets that we operate in, we have somebody that's helping us locally. And then we have a full-time employee in the Palm Springs area where the bulk of our management portfolio is. So we're still very hands-on in the day-to-day operations. We're still doing all of the guest messaging ourselves. We're still doing all of the client communication ourselves, and owner statements and
listing maintenance,
all of
and
that
pricing
stuff.
and all those things. Like we handle all that admin back end, but then we've hired local support to really help with restocking and quality checks and things like that. And because we also wanted to enable our own projects, property management grew very quickly, and it was an enabler for us to acquire more properties of our own. And those properties came with, renovation needs and setup needs and everything else. So we needed time, to pursue those things. So that's been the last few years in a nutshell, I guess.
So what does the portfolio mix look today between and properties that you guys own and operate versus those that you are managing for others?
Yeah. So we still have that original duplex down in San Diego that we operate as, 2 separate STRs. And then we've purchased a couple more short-term rentals of our own in Scottsdale, one just outside of the Palm Springs area, kind of up on this hill overlooking Palm Desert. That's a big, almost 80-acre place that we have a lot of plans for at some point in the future when we have more free time. And then we also purchased a STR/wedding venue in Albuquerque that we're operating remotely with some local support. But like I said before, we're handling most things ourselves. And then the rest of that, did I get them? Oh, Scottsdale, an STR that we have in Scottsdale. And then the rest is managed for clients. It's almost a 50-50 split at this point between short-term rentals and monthly furnished rentals or midterm rentals.
That's awesome. And as you guys are sort of building your portfolio, do you have like a long-term vision of like what you're trying to build? Like, is there a vision there, or is it like finding opportunities that you think will cash flow? Like what is the strategy?
We've kind of had the strategy evolve and change. The things,
I was going to say, it depends on what day of the week it is sometimes.
what we've come to realize, I think, in the last probably 3 years is that we don't want a huge property management company. Like, that's pretty clear in our minds that, we like the fact that it's a boutique company where we're still well connected to all the listings. We can give personalized attention to guests. We can have personalized attention to the home itself. We're hands-on people. We like to make sure maintenance is up to a high standard, and we want a great guest experience. And without staffing up and a lot of overhead, it's hard to do that at a large scale. And so we're pretty comfortable with the number of rentals that we have right now. I think one of the things we want to continue to do is grow our own portfolio, and then also probably curate the list of properties that we do have under management a little bit. And it's not to say that any of our properties are bad, but there's some that, owners just and us aren't on the same page with strategy and things like that. We would be fine if a couple of them maybe went away, where it's just, it's a two-way street.
Quality over quantity.
It's a two-way street in a partnership, really, with property management. You as a property manager have to be a partner with that owner. And if you're not having the same strategy and the same vision, then tensions arise. So anyway, I think our size right now, we're pretty comfortable with. It enables us, to still do the lifestyle things that we want to do without, being too huge of a burden.
Yeah. So now you guys have sort of embarked on a trip. Is that a good way to describe it?
It's an accurate word.
Yeah. We decided that we would visit all 50 states in the United States.
And in each state, we are looking for the coolest kid-approved short-term rental. And we're staying in one right now in Orange Beach, Alabama.
Yeah, so we're on
looking at the ocean.
State number 36 right now, and so we're well down the path. But it's been an interesting journey. We started in early September, and so we've been traveling continuously, for almost 3 months now, and making our way around the country.
So I do want to ask about getting prepared for this trip and like how you are gonna set up your business, because the amount of properties you guys have, like, doing it remote is one thing. Doing it like ultra remote is is a whole nother thing. But how did you get an idea for doing this trip? Because I talked to hundreds of property managers, and an idea that so many of them I talked to, I can't even think about taking a vacation, much less like getting in a van and going for months on a time. So where'd this idea come from?
So we, well, first of all, I feel you on that. We felt tied to our business for so long, and we kind of had to make a point to look at where we want to be and be able to travel and be able to, leave even for a weekend or something like that. We felt like we couldn't do that for a long time, and just sort of reverse engineer, how do we get to that point?
Mm-hmm.
And it took a while. It took about 2 years. And now we split our time between Iowa and Southern California. We kind of escape the poor weather seasons in both markets. But back to your original question, we watched as a family, we watched Ryan Trahan's 50 States series on YouTube this summer. I'm sure a lot of people have, especially in the short-term rental community. We were all curious where he was going to end up in every state. And we had originally thought about doing some sort of like reaction video to it on our own YouTube channel and talk about, some things that we noticed at different properties. And our kids are always around. They hear us talking about stuff. They heard us talking about that. And one day our son piped up from the backseat of the truck and he's like, hey, what if we go to all 50 states, just like Ryan Trahan, but you let me and Vera pick the short-term rentals? And we kind of looked at each other like, man, this kid's crazy, but that's kind of a good idea. And we kind of shoot him away and say, oh, we can't do something like that. But then, every day it just got a little more into our brains, and we kind of started to think about how, could we do this? Is this possible? What do we need to do to set up the business to be, on the road for 5 months? And, we probably jumped a little quickly into it. We really only planned it for about
maybe 6
weeks. Yeah. And then we just took off one morning and started.
Yeah. The initial like logistics and planning, we just kind of started laying it out, and the pieces fit together, and you do have to fit the pieces together very precisely. We're in each state for around 2 days most of the time, and then we move on to the next one. So you got to line up, find a cool kids approved STR, find their availability, get it booked, move on to the next one. So there was, I think, what did we plan? About 30 states before we even left.
Yeah, something like that.
And then we just got on the road and started driving. So it's been interesting. We're I think about 12,000 miles worth of driving in so far. And
we're learning so much along the way.
Such a cool exposure to many different hosts, and what everyone's doing. We've gotten a lot of inspiration, a lot of ideas by seeing what other people are doing. And we've had some really cool host conversations too. We've encouraged anyone who's available and around, at places that we're staying. We'd love to talk to you.
Come over.
Yeah. And
hang out with us for a little while. And sometimes they do.
Yeah. So we've had some really neat conversations with people, and it's just been a really cool experience for us so far.
Yeah. So what's been the biggest surprise so far in terms of running the business? And then I'll ask on the travel side.
I think the biggest surprise is just how little free time we end up with. Like, when you tell people, oh, I'm visiting all 50 states, and it sounds like a vacation, and it is. We're having fun, but there is still a lot of work. We're doing a YouTube video highlighting the short-term rental and the stay in every state. We have a lot of work that goes into that. And then there's a lot of work with our continued operations of the short-term rental business too. But I think we've set things up in a way, with the hands-on support that we have in each market that helps. And then there's just, things come up and you got to deal with them. And it doesn't matter where you are.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like most of the problems that have come up, it's like, it would be impacting us if we were right there or right here. The same steps would be involved. We're just on a beach instead of, I don't know.
Yeah, you got to be connected, and I guess that's one thing I think most short-term rental operators are used to. You got to be connected to your business, and so nothing changes with that. We're always connected, and there's responsibilities there. But it does. Between the driving, the visiting cool points of interest and stuff, and then the work, it's a job, but it's been fun.
Was there any pushback from your owners on like guys, like, we hired you guys to run our rentals and now you're going to take off on the road for 3 months?
So our full-time employee in the Palm Springs area, she has been our boots on the ground person for a year and almost 2 years now. Mm-hmm. So our roles and responsibilities haven't really changed. For the last 2 years, we have been more in the background, not like on the property site for every single turnover. Mm-hmm. We still make our rounds, but not much has changed, I guess.
No, I mean, we
and that was part of the whole reverse engineering that I was talking about before. Like, we wanted to start setting things up so that we did not have to be there all the time.
Yeah, even if it wasn't this trip, Kylie mentioned we've been splitting our time between California and Iowa. We'd set things up in such a way where that's been happening the last 2 years. And so, yeah, not much. And I don't think, some of our owners don't know, I don't think some of our owners don't know we have a social media presence. They don't know that we have a YouTube. They don't know any of it. And then there are some who do, watch and check things out, and they've been very supportive. So
but the
it's a
quality
mix.
also hasn't changed. I mean,
No.
the properties are still very highly reviewed. They're very well taken care of. We're still communicating well, and everyone's getting their owner statements and their payments on time. So, what are you going to
Yeah.
about?
And so on that, like, of the systems and tools that you guys have sort of created, and which ones do you think have the biggest impact on your ability to sort of operate remotely? Because, and as you said in the beginning, like it was, and you're sort of figuring things out as you went and sort of pulling yourself back out a bit. I'm sure like there's some things that you see like, oh man, we should have done that from the beginning. Like it's made the process so much easier.
Yep.
We've been happy uplisting customers, I think, for almost 3 years now. And so uplisting is the biggest key, towards guest management, listing management, pricing, all those things, that a property management software platform does. That's a key. And then we rely on Breezeway
yeah.
for
Heavily, yeah.
turnover, cleaning scheduling, maintenance scheduling, task reporting, maintenance issue reporting. Those are the two pillars, I would say. And then there's various others, smart home equipment and camera monitoring and stuff like that. Minute we use for noise monitoring, but from the day to day, it's Breezeway and uplisting. Those are the two apps we're using most.
Yeah. And so when you say like sort of automations, like I've got my listing and there's things that I try to automate as much as I can. Like I've got my guest communication, like pre-booking and after check-in, like after checkout, like I've got my automated responses to just about everything they ask, but occasionally there's things that come up new. There's an auto changing of the locks for each guest. How much of this business would you say is actually automated versus like, for any given guest, you're having to go and do things like for each one?
Most people are going to be surprised by our answer, but not very much is automated.
Yeah, we don't rely very much on like pure automation.
Yeah.
We've set up like templated responses a lot, and we use those a lot, but we really haven't found it to be a huge burden to just take a little bit of time. You use the template, maybe answer actually, a curated response to a guest question with just a couple extra words or typing. And so we do that mostly. I'd say most all of our responses are templated yet personalized. So
that is one thing we've kind of been surprised about on this trip is the I don't want to like speak poorly on anybody, but there's a lot of hosts that we've encountered either that we have booked with or haven't, where the response time is like 8 hours, 10 hours. So if you're unable to be quick on your phone, then please do the templated responses, but with both of us being, around our phones, it's not too hard for us to just pick it up and type something out and get that out in a speedy way.
It helps that we work together, and we do have support. If we're like incommunicado somewhere, our employee, she can answer messages if needed to. But yeah, for the most part, we're just used to it. It's been something we built, that sort of standard procedure to personalize responses from the start, and we just kept doing it.
Yeah. And you said you guys are sort of good with the scale of the business now. Like it's more like, and maybe let's curate the type of listings and the type of owners that we have, not necessarily and grow more. But what do you think is that limit of like, and for two people, maybe plus someone on the ground, like, and that you could scale to before you have to like, and start hiring all those other people? Cause it's a conversation property managers and have all the time of like, and we organically grew and then we started hiring and then like things and went a little bit off the rails. So for you guys, like, where do you think that limit is of and be able to sort of be able to respond to every message, know every homeowner, and build those systems without needing a whole sort of on the ground team to do it?
I think for us, it's probably about the size that we are right now. I think if, we continue to insist on the quality of the operation that we have right now, then it would require hiring more. And then to pay for those hires, you have to keep growing. It's kind of the way I see it. It's like, if otherwise you're taking a significant pay cut and just not working as much, to hire more would mean us having the time to go out and grow the business into something that's going to create more income, because I think we've seen a lot of operations that are either ultra low staffed or very high staffed. And I start to wonder, like, how are these people even making any money? With this hierarchy of employees that they have. But the quality is good, but it seems like a very expensive operation. So the short answer is, like, I think we're fine with the number right now. It does require a good amount of our time to operate. And so I think in the future, our priorities are going to continue to shift a little bit, where we want more of that time back, but we would still, keep it around this size and maybe hire one more person that does guest interaction type work.
So we've talked a lot about hosting and sort of, and you guys have done an amazing job of documenting your journey. And I love how host focused you are on, like, here's how you can do it, and here's how we're doing it. Here's how we design our homes. Here's how we're managing. Here's our systems. But on the property management side, like, have you guys seen this as a big benefit for actually attracting guests and driving sort of direct bookings into your platform? Or do you see this as separate people that you're sort of attracting to your sites?
Well, YouTube has brought in some property management clients.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I don't think either of us really expected.
No. We didn't expect it to hit so locally, where people would, actually have a property in the Palm Springs area and look for a manager and find our YouTube channel. So that was kind of a surprise. I don't know that we're particularly bringing in guests from social media. No one's told us.
Yeah, I think
maybe
our main mission, on social media, aside from when this trip started a few months ago, was to just share our knowledge about being hosts. And so I think most of our audience is host related, not so much guest focused. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe
that's changed with this trip a little bit. We're putting out very different content than we usually would.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah. What kind of host content sort of does the best for you guys? Like, what are the things that you see really resonate with hosts in terms of what you guys have produced in the past?
I would say just very to the fact, here's what we do. Like our videos on settings always perform really well. Setup ones, like you can get this, and this, those usually perform well. Things not to do, those usually perform well.
Yeah, naturally, my experience with YouTube before our own channel is I want to learn something about a topic, and so I'm going to go search for it. And I think that's probably what a lot of our historical audience has come to our channel for is, they typed Airbnb settings or Airbnb amenities or something, and in a video like that popped up. So I think, those probably a more beginner focused topics in a lot of them. Our uplisting videos have done well. Our direct booking website videos have done well. Failures always seem to attract people's attention. We've shared a few, trouble stories and stuff like that, and people want to hear about that. I think so. It's been mixed.
We've always just had this mentality, like Steven said, just share what we're doing, share what we know, and kind of whatever's going on in the moment. If we're setting up a property or if we're adjusting our own settings, then that's what we talk about.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's changed the way you're host by sort of documenting it?
I will tell you that being on this trip has sort of changed my hosting mentality. There's a lot of things that I was very strict on, like within our own portfolio, and now being a guest, in other people's, it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Like it's not that big of a deal. Like here I am saying never do this, but it's okay. So I think what it's shown is that, you know, and we always say this too, we're sharing what works for us. What works for us may not be the best for your business, but this is what we do and this is what works for us. And there's a lot of people doing things differently than us that are still doing it very well.
Yeah. So do you have any sort of 5-star stories to tell from your adventure so far this summer, or maybe any 1-star stories to share?
Definitely no 1-star stories. I
No,
think
everything's been awesome.
that's I mean, a good thing. I think we what we've done, in every state is we found this like short list of properties that are available and properties that we think are cool, and then we sit together as family and kids give their input, and then we ultimately choose one. So I think we've become pretty good at picking cool places, but all the hosts have been really great. Honestly, I think
That's what has taken things up to like that 5-star plus, is that when we get to meet the host and we get to hear their story, and you just get so much more of a connection to everything, not just the property, but the whole, city that you're in. And it's been really special.
yeah, definitely, our exposure to stays like in rural areas and on farms. Our kids have gravitated to
They
a
love
lot
the
of
animals.
a lot of farms, and we've seen it's been really interesting to see how people integrate animals into short-term rental stays. And I think it's really cool. Like honestly, like it brings people in. It's super memorable and rewarding experience from the guest perspective.
Mhm.
And that's kind of been an inspiration for us. Like the wheels have started to turn, like, hey, how could we maybe implement some animals at some of our stays? So that could be coming, but that's I think a highlight, I guess. The animal experiences that we've had have been very cool.
From two people who always said we're not having any pets.
Yeah.
Now we want a cow.
And then, and on that realm, and outside of the animals, has there been anything of like, and realizing going through of like, oh, we absolutely need to do this for, and maybe the properties that you guys own and control of like, this was a cool thing that was done?
There's been a realization that, some of our properties aren't fully optimized to their potential, that there's things that we can add. We have a little to-do list that we want to do next spring at our big acreage in the Palm Springs area. Nothing crazy, like want to add maybe a sauna or just some things to like bring more people up there.
I think what we've realized, and like this isn't just from the trip, we've known this. There was a kind of a post-COVID boom where it was this euphoric time where everyone was just traveling to somewhere they could drive to, and they were staying, and it was pretty easy. And now I think a lot of things have returned to seasonality and competitive factors. With what's your neighbor doing, and so I think we've realized that in some ways, like I said, both with the trip and just both as kind of time has gone on, that there is an opportunity, instead of going out and like trying to buy another property, we should really try and maximize what we have with our existing properties, and try and instill that strategy in our owners too. And that's a hard thing, because in kind of this post-COVID era, the suburban nice but kind of unmemorable house is a lot harder sell, and that owner then is stressed because their performance isn't as good, and then telling them that, hey, you've got to reinvest more money to actually make more money, some people just, that doesn't add up for them, and like, so that's where probably this curation of our portfolio will come in. Is like, we're going to go, when we're off this trip, we'll have more free time to apply attention to maximizing the listings we have.
Yeah, it's a theme I hear, and with a lot of investors and with property managers, of like the reinvestment in what you have, and going through your portfolio and figuring out like what you can do for existing homes and really maximize the revenue that they're getting, and showing them examples of like, here's properties that are doing really well, even nearby you. And here's what they're earning. Like, they're crushing it. And like, the only difference between them and you is like these things, and those things don't cost that much money. Or if they do, like, and here's the amount of time that it's going to take to return that. And ultimately it's going to be better for both of us if we do those changes. And in a time right now when interest rates are still high, home values are still and really expensive, like, you can do a lot to sort of grow your existing and grow your revenue, grow your cash flow just from an asset you've already sort of invested in.
Yeah, we see that. I mean, and that's what we believe in. Instilling that in owners sometimes is another thing. We've seen some owners sell, and so our portfolio numbers have kind of fluctuated up and down a little bit because of that. But then it is good that we do have those data points within our own portfolio. We have some homes that are absolutely crushing it, and we share that to the owners that are doing a little worse and saying, hey, here's the nudge, that you guys could be here, with your property. So that's where, the frustration sometimes of property management come in, is like you as a property manager aren't in control of the performance, not all the aspects of the performance of the property. You got to have the owners buy into.
Yeah. Well, guys, this has been a ton of fun. I feel like I've learned from lots. And as I mentioned pre-call, I've got a 4 and 8 year old. I'm kind of afraid to have them watch this episode and get.
Might find yourself on a trip. I mean,
it's fun, man.
Yeah, that's honestly, I will never regret having taken this trip. There's obviously challenges. There's obviously times where it's not easy, but it's I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we just came up with the idea and said, yeah, we're gonna do this. Because it's awesome memories.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. And if people want to follow along, and we'll include in the show notes, but for listening, how do they follow you? How do they find you on YouTube?
Yeah, we're at Kylee and Steven on all socials. So YouTube, Instagram, TikTok,
Facebook. Yeah.
all the places.
Yeah. Just at Kylee and Steven. And yeah, we've got more states to cover, and we'll be continuing to post about all that.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jamie.
Jamie.